If he dies, he dies. Full lower body workout. Let's see if we can survive. Here we go.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some loose shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Hey guys, Coach Dan here. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the workout, best Rocky movie, all included, none off bars. You got 1 through 5, the classics, and then you got the Balboas and stuff. I don't know what the order happens after that. The Balboas, the Creeds, they all come into it. Comment the best of the lot. And now we shall go through the full lower body workout on the cards for today. So today is week 3, fat loss phase, workout 2. We go lower body on this workout. So this is what you might call a quad dominant workout, or at least it starts with the heavy quad stuff where we go hack squat. So I have been hack squatting for a heavy set and then down to moderate set. So I do one set of 6 to 8 and then I bring it back down to 8 to 15. Now I've been struggling for progress on the hack squat most recently. So potentially I might need to change something and mix something up there, such as, try and go straight to my more moderate sets and try and build the weight up on that before I come back down in weight or something like that. I might have to put a plan together for that or periodize that in some capacity. Anyway, enough of that. Then we move on to a high foot leg press. So we're putting the feet high on the leg press to bias it more towards the glute. So what you'll see when doing that is you get a lot of hip flexion, but not as much knee flexion. Also, the weight is coming down in a different place where it's sort of over the knees and it makes it a bit harder to extend the hip. But we'll go through that in more detail when we're out there. Then seated hamstring curl, nothing to it but to do it. A bit of hamstring work on this day, so it's not exclusively quads. We go a bit of hamstring work and then our machine work. So we're going leg extensions for a couple of sets. Up the front there, moderate rep range, you might call it, 10 to 15. Machine adduction has been in the routine for the last couple of weeks. And then we move on to calf raises on the leg press. And then we've also switched over to our abdominal exercise to our abdominal cable crunch with our butt kind of on the post for stability. So, this marks week 3 of the fat loss phase and feeling good. You got some hunger kicking around, but nothing to it. We're seeing, some results when you start to notice things changing. It makes it rewarding when people start to comment and stuff. That kind of feeds the beast. When it's all hunger and all grind and no one's noticing anything and you don't feel any different or anything like that, that can be a tough time. But eventually she comes good and you start to see what all your hard work has built to, and that's quite rewarding. You know what I mean? If this is the game you like to play. All right, let's not muck around anymore. Let's go hack squats and let's warm it on up and let's smash it out. Big hack squats. Here we go. Alright, first up we have our big quad movement of the day, the big hack squat. So for me, the hack squat gives me the most perceived stimulus in my quads. And what I mean by that is it feels the most effective. When you get off of a hack squat, a really challenging hack squat set, quads feel really jacked up. And I mean, you're out of breath, you're tired and whatnot, but like that is potentially a good sign. If you do an exercise and like you feel tired at the end, but potentially you don't feel the muscle group that you're trying to target, then there might be something better out there. So we call that stimulus to fatigue, or just generally stimulus. If you feel a good stimulus from an exercise or a good perception of stimulus, that is probably a good thing. There is some things where sometimes it's a bit tricky, like you feel something, but it's not accurate, and this comes with a little bit of experience and understanding and stuff like that. Anyway, a couple of pointers for the hack squat. So I have these yoga blocks here to allow for a larger range of motion. Because I'm not super tall, I run into the bottom of the hack squat machine. So I use those yoga blocks to kind of push me further that way and allow me to go further that way. With my foot placement, it's usually pretty low down. So there's a logo in the center here, which you can't see, but I kind of place my toes at the top of that and then toes slightly out. Then we get it under here like such. Our particular hack squat, once you push up, you have to hold these handles in. I control the descent, so maybe 1 to 2 seconds under control, looking for a large amount of knee flexion and therefore quad stretch, and then driving up quite aggressively. Now, I am a big fan of range of motion, and it might not have to be to the excessive level that I do, but I kind of figure it gives me a really good stimulus. What happens when you do large ranges of motion as well is that you find that you use less weight for things. So hopefully the fact that I can get a large stimulus from my large range of motion with less weight and less strain on my body is a positive thing. If I didn't use these yoga blocks, would this be less for muscle growth? Probably not, is my best guess, but potentially I'd have to use more weight, more strain on the body. So if your main goal is muscle growth, you kind of want to reduce the amount of fatigue that everything's copying except the muscle. So, all right, let's build her up. So we are, mentioned in the intro, I've been struggling to get better at this. So my plan of attack is to go straight to more moderate sets. 8 to 15 is the kind of range that I've been in. So I have been doing a set of 6 to 8 and a couple of sets of 8 to 15 at the end or afterwards. I'm just going to go straight to 8 to 15, try and drive my numbers up at that higher rep range, and then maybe later on bring back in a heavier set. But for now, try and drive up my 8 to 15s. Let's get it. Come on. Okay, hack squats done. Reasonably happy with how that went. It felt tough and heavy from the get-go, but that's okay. So the goal with that is going to be to try and drive my performance up in the 8 to 15 rep range. I think I got 13 on set 1. So if I can get, it was 60 aside up to 15, then I might increase weight and then try and drive that up before I add back in heavy stuff. So yeah, the heavy stuff wasn't budging for weeks. So I'm gonna try and budge this up, just shooting for progress along, always trying to move that little bit forward where possible. And if I need to change some stuff to keep that going, that's what I'm gonna do, right? Okay, next up we go leg press, right? So we're right next door, hack squats there, leg press here. We haven't had to go too far. This day I do a glute-biased leg press. So I'll show you what that means in a minute. And I mentioned that in the introduction as well. So glute-biased, because this would be my glute-dominant exercise. I'll only do 2 sets. Again, the glutes get work on lots of the other movements that we do. So hack squat, probably not like smashing the glutes, but your hips still have to extend and glutes are gonna do that job. On my other day, I do a stiff-legged deadlift on the belt squat. Again, I'm trying to push that as much towards hamstrings as possible, but the glutes get smashed on that. So on two exercises per week, I do glute-biased exercise. So number one is this one, the glute-biased leg press, and the other one's a rear foot elevated Smith machine split squat. So I do 2 sets of each of those. That's it for glute-dominant work. So they get a lot of work through other things, and I've probably brought my glutes up in the last 6 months such that I don't really need a massive emphasis on them. Anyway, with all that said, I do leg press on another day that I make quad dominant. The quad dominant leg press has my feet down low. It has my weightlifting shoes on that I've taken off, which gets elevated heel, which allows for more ankle flexion and therefore get us that better depth, which gets us more knee flexion, which hopefully gets us more quad stimulus. This time, shoes off, feet high on the platform such that when it comes down, we're aiming for full hip flexion, but not maximizing knee flexion as much. So full hip flexion will be a knee to the chest. I can't really go through my chest, and that will make it glutey as possible. What we also have different between these two leg presses, if you think where my feet is hitting that platform, that is where this weight is associating with my system. It's then coming down here directly over the top of my knees, which means it's going to be a small moment arm for the knees and a larger moment arm for the hips. And the moment arm is essentially where the force is coming down, the distance between that and for humans, for people, the distance between where the force is coming and the joint that we're trying to extend. So if we make this distance large, it makes it hard on that joint. Hard to extend that joint, requires a large amount of torque. So with that said, we get the feet high, the weight comes down here, but my hips are over here. Makes the moment arm nice and long. All right, we've got to build up some weight on this. It's getting pretty heavy, so let's start that up. Come on. Yes. That's good. All right. Put some hair on my chest with those first 2, hack squat and leg press done. Now we get into a bit of hamstring isolation work. On this day, I do 3 sets here of hamstring work just to put some volume into the hamstring. So my other lower body day, a few days from now, is going to be more posterior chain dominant. So I'll do like a stiff-legged deadlift, the belt squat, and also a lying hamstring curl. So there's more work for hamstrings on that day, but I can afford to do some hamstrings on this day because I am fully recovered by the other day. So there's no real dramas recovery-wise. Hamstring curl, not too much to it. The seated version appears to be very effective because it kind of puts us in this pre-stretch position. The fact that the hamstring is a muscle where most of it passes 2 joints, both the knee and the hip, means a straight knee is a lengthened hamstring compared to a bent knee, but also a hinge at the hip, like we are put into this position, gets us that pre-stretch. And then, things like stiff-legged deadlifts and things of that nature have that stretch position. So not too much to it. Essentially, we'll drive the heels down, control the way up, big hamstring stretch, and down. Now, what you'll see at the end of this set, because my strength is such that I'm limited by full range before I'm actually fully fatigued, I'll do some half reps towards the end to kind of get that little bit extra stimulus, and that feels good to me. So I've continued on with that. And yeah, that's all I have to say. These machines are effective and pretty good. So let's smash it out. All right, a couple little cherries on top here. We've got, oh, actually, I missed leg extension so far, just due to availability, so I'm going to skip over to the adduction. I wouldn't consider leg extension a cherry on top. I would consider that equivalent to like not a sack of shit on top, but just a nice little nugget of shit on top, you know what I mean? It's really brutal, that one. All right, anyway, we've got machine adduction. So adduction, as the name does suggest, but essentially it means adding or taking your legs towards your body. This machine has dual purpose. One is adduction towards you, towards the center. One is abduction. Now the abduction is going to be more, working towards the glutes and things like that. The adduction works the adductors and muscles through the inner thigh. So couple of pointers here. We're going to take this thing up here. So I've got this little crank. I am the second last notch on here as far as flexibility goes. The other technique or setup cue is to lean back to keep to stretch those adductors out even further, because they're also a hip flexor. They contribute to hip flexion, so raising the leg up. We want to extend the hips to help stretch them out. Then we drive knees towards one another, open up as far as you can, drive knees. This, if you think about what we've got here, like quads through the front, they got smashed on things like leg press, hack squat, things like that, and they will leg extension later when it's available. But these adductors, they don't get as much love. They'll contribute, but they're definitely not the limiting factor. So this is about smashing them. And I do this 2 days per week, one for a heavier weight or lower rep range and one for a higher rep range, just to mix it up a little bit. Okay, let's do it. Okay, again, a bit out of order. We've still got the leg extension waiting in the wings here, but thankfully leg press calf raise is on the cards. Shouldn't fuck that up too much either. So leg press calf raise, we're going to do 4 sets here. I do 1 calf exercise per lower body workout, 4 sets each. That's it. That seems to be enough for me at the time being. The leg press variation of calf raise is pleasant to me because there's no weight on you, it's not on your system, it's just your calves going to town. On occasion, I've done this as a superset between this and some ab work, but again, it looks like it's a bit congested where I would be doing that ab work, so I'll go this 4 sets with breaks in between, and then head over there and do that, or leg extension, depending on which one is available at the time. Now, to the specifics and technique and key points of takeaway, and I'll stop talking shit here in a second. We go half a foot on the platform, half a foot off. Now, you want the bare minimum of your big toe. So let's say this was the big toe, it's my finger. Hey, look how bad my finger is. Terrible. That's a sporting issue. Let's say this is my foot and this is the ball of the big toe. You want to keep this at least on there the whole time. But if we go too far down the foot, I could probably demonstrate with the foot. If we go too far up this way, you'll limit range of motion. So if we get the ball of the big foot on there, it turns out to be about half the foot. That usually allows for a large range of motion, but also to be able to produce good force. So we'll simply push up, heels go underneath, gets you a nice calf stretch, raise, stretch, raise. Still control the down, don't just go and bounce into it. Control, stretch, and then raise up onto the toes. All right, that's about all I've got. Yeah, leg press is good on this because it doesn't put a weight on you like a Smith machine or something like that. So I can just chill and just fuck up my calves. All right, let's go. All right, some core work and some leg extensions to come. So this is going to be a cable abdominal crunch, which I have started doing differently somewhat recently. I used to do this facing in, like a standard one, but what I was seeing through video footage and whatnot was this is a lot of hip flexion. So if you're facing in, this tends to be this. So this is hip flexion. All we really want for abdominal training is that sensation there, the taking of the sternum towards your pelvis, basically. So we're crunching in like that. Or if you look at it side on, it's essentially a flexing of the lumbar curve, and that's the job of the abs or the rectus abdominis. So when I get into this position now, I'll kind of lean down a little bit and just try and focus on that crunching motion and get that hip flexion out of it. The other thing that happens when you face away, well, two things, is that the resistance is now going to be harder towards the beginning, instead of when you're facing in, it sort of starts to get harder as you start to scoop down. As well as I use this post here and I essentially put my butt cheek on either side of that to create some stability. And then, yeah, I can kind of use that to keep me stable. So what I'll do, butt on there, get myself in a position, crunch in, back up to there. And ultimately, for abs, yeah, that's all we need. Crunch up, crunch. Doesn't have to be heaps of hip flexion like a deadlift or an RDL. It's just crunching, that's it. All right, let's do it. What do we got, 4 sets here? Still haven't gotten to the leg extension yet, so hopefully when we wrap up here, that'll be ready to go. Okay, we finally have made it to the leg extension. This is due like 3 or 4 exercises ago, but we will cap off. We'll see how the juice levels are here. This is usually pretty painful, so we've got to push through. So the things about the leg extension that I do that are a little bit unusual: increase range of motion. There is a new tool these days called a Hustler Pad. I think is the brand name, and just what they are calling it, which you kind of lock in here and it does the same thing. So that would be handy, but these are, I've already had these and these are pretty cheap, and essentially what this is going to do is push my foot back this way, which is going to flex my knee more, which is a higher stretch for the knee, up for the quad. That is a good thing, it would appear. Also, I set the back pad all the way back, and again, if we're thinking about what the leg extension is probably good for, is one of the muscles of the quads called the rectus femoris. That's also a hip flexor. So with things like squats and leg presses and things like that, at the knee and the hip, it's doing different jobs. So while you're flexing the knee, stretching the quad out at the knee, you're also flexing the hip, right? So it's kind of doing opposing jobs. So you think about if muscles kind of contract like this, which we call the sliding filament theory, they kind of pull each other together like this and they contract. At one joint, let's say the knee's over here and the hip is over here, at one joint it's kind of lengthening, at one joint it's doing this. So we kind of never really get great use or great growth in the quad from those movements, or in the rectus femoris specifically. So yoga block, back pad all the way back. Those are a couple of pointers. I'm getting not too shabby at this one, so the weight's getting up there, which is cool. And along with that, we crank this as far forward as you can. Lean back, open the hip up, stretch out the quad, extend the knee. That's that. Let's do it. 2 sets and we are out of here. All right, that caps us off, guys. Leg extension to finish. That's a harsh way to finish a workout. All in all, happy there. It's tough. I think, yeah, potentially a good move with the hack squats going to a lower weight and a higher rep range. See if we can't push that up, and then maybe eventually slot the heavy set back in. But everything else, there's some good progress there. And yeah, we just keep rolling with this fat loss phase. So still, what says 7 weeks to go. So we're gonna make sure it's sustainable over the course of the 7 weeks. Body weight's trending in the right direction. I think we started off 88-ish. I was 85.3 this morning, but again, you don't get caught up in those kind of initial big hits. It takes a couple of weeks to kind of, even out as far as, like getting some food out of your gut, less water, all this kind of stuff, to actually see the rate of weight gain. So sometimes we don't get caught up on those big initial hits and then disappointed when it plateaus. It's not unusual. All right, tomorrow, pull. Good pull workout. We started a big new workout last week, so we're going to revisit that. Pretty much exactly the same, although yeah, there were some changes made due to availability. But as always, guys, if you're liking the content, hit a button up here for a subscription. If you want to watch more, hit a video up here and see how I'm training some of the other muscle groups. And as always, it's about progress over perfection. Coach Dan, signing off.